I'm excited today because we have a special guest with us. He's a two-time Grammy Award-winning, multi-platinum selling, and future author. He's worked with some of the world's biggest hip-hop, R&B, and pop artists such as Jay-Z, Kanye, Beyonce, Madonna, Gladys Knight. Y'all give it up for my friend, S1.
Yes, sir.
Bro, so I'm excited.
Me too, man.
It's crazy that we live in the same city and I'm interviewing you overseas.
Yeah, that's super crazy, man.
But I personally love the idea of this because I'm just the idea of how I started my relationship with you and now to where we're at now is just really, really cool. The dynamic of it. I shared earlier a little bit about how we met and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's dope.
And I really like the way our relationship has grown because it's grown into more of just a friendship where we talk, we communicate, and you've been a huge blessing to me as far as giving me advice. I remember the first time I was going in to get a placement, but the first time I was going to actually work with a recording artist that was signed for the first time, and I called you. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
And I was like, bro, what's the proper
Studio etiquette?
Yeah, you're like, dog, that's a good question. But I always remembered that and how you were so willing to just man, let me give you some insight on what I've done. And that seems to be an ongoing thing for you. You seem to kind of fall into that mentor role for a lot of people, especially in your hometown. And I think that dynamic is really cool because people get to see you not as a superstar, somebody that's trying to be this great producer but's too cocky to maybe interact with people. Just the idea that you're a humble dude, you're really down to earth, and that you're willing to give back, I think is such a cool dynamic added to all the accolades that you've received, right?
Appreciate that, man.
So I just want to get right into it, man. I know we got producers here for the Airbit retreat, and a lot of producers are going to be watching this. So let's just start from the beginning, bro. How did you come up? What was it? What was your come up like? What was your introduction into the music industry?
Well, my come up was pretty interesting, to say the least. All throughout school, all throughout high school, I didn't even know what a music producer was, but I was fascinated with music.
Yeah.
From church, of course. From sixth grade to my senior year in high school, I played alto sax in the band. So I did that. And then at my church, they let me play piano at my Sunday school. I learned I had 2 songs memorized and I would just play those every Sunday. So that was my introduction to music. But like I say, I didn't know anything about what a music producer does, what the responsibilities of a music producer was, or what the technicalities of that was. It wasn't until I graduated high school, I linked up with my cousin Kevin, who lived in the same city. He lived in Waco as well. And I would get with him on the weekends and he would be writing rhymes, and we would go out in my little mini truck that I had, and he would be freestyling. So being around him on the weekends, I gravitated towards that. Since I was always around him, I started picking up a pen and just started writing things, and we started creating songs. And then at my high school, one of my best friends was a DJ.
Okay.
His name was Rob K, and he was a DJ. So I put I started putting the dots together. I'm like, why don't I invite Kevin over and we can go for Rob K's? And Rob K was all for it. So we went over Rob K's one weekend, and he had his little DJ set up. He had 2 wired mics that we would use, and he would just put on instrumentals and breaks, and we would just rhyme over them, freestyle, write songs. So from that weekend, every weekend we would be at Rob K's making music, making demo tapes. So after about a year of doing that, it came to a point to where I became interested in knowing how people were making their own music, because we were just using other people's instrumentals and music. So it's like, man, how are people making their own? We just rapping over other artists' stuff. So I started to research a little more. I remember my first piece of equipment was a a Gemini mixer with an 8-second sampler on it. My
Oh,
dad had
wow.
purchased for me. So I would literally just, from my dad's vinyl collection, run the turntable directly into that and just record 8 seconds. And I thought I was doing something, but I just loop, certain sections and record it to cassette.
But you kind of had to be creative,
I had
right?
to be creative, and
It's done a
that's what I
lot.
learned from the limitations of that.
Yeah.
Is just how to find ways to make things happen. So yeah, from that stage, that's what really led me into wanting to know more about production, the art of production. As soon as I got out of high school, I wanted to still continue and be around music, so I enrolled in audio technology program at a community college back where I was from in Waco.
Okay.
And I got into that program, and that's where it really kicked off for me.
Nice, man. So during that process, like, what are some of the things that you felt like you needed to start doing after that, like to get exposure, to get known? Because at this point, you're just fresh as a producer, right? I'm sure at some point you had to think like, okay, what's my next step? Or like, how do I get, these big artists and stuff like that? Like, who was your favorite artist? Like, who did you want to work with at that point?
I mean, it wasn't even, at that point, it wasn't even that. It was just, how can I get better so I can compete? Because at that level, I didn't feel like I was at a level to where I could compete and be that and work with people. So it was like that learning stage, just very fascinated with learning. So, I was learning things in my audio engineering class, but at the same time, within that class, I met some really great guys who are my best friends to this day. And we was talking about it yesterday.
Yeah.
My man's Oneself and Ramon and Butterfinger, and, it was 6 of us. And we were in this class together, and our instructor was more rock music, rock country, and he would always give us these projects in our class, and we were hip hop guys,
right.
Hip hop to the core, but he would always give us these projects that would lean towards that to challenge us, because he didn't want us really doing that type of music in the class.
Okay.
So we would always get together and like, how can we figure out the ways to still do that but do us? So he would be like, okay, this song project, you have to use a bass guitar and a guitar and a piano. I was like, okay, cool. We'll just incorporate those live instruments. So that's
Right.
when we really start to learn about incorporating live instruments in our production.
Nice.
And, and so he was really doing us a favor, because we was able to take things that we weren't necessarily thinking about at the time, but applying it to make our music better.
Wow.
That's
dope. So at what point did you feel like, I need to let people know that I exist outside of your group as a producer?
So that point came after that, I created a group called Strange Fruit Project. And with that group was really the birth of me getting myself out there, because so we started the group, and I was the main producer of the group. I was also MC in the group as well. But with that group, I was able to create a sound for the group. And when we put that album out, it kind of took on a life of its own. And that's how Questlove became one of our biggest fans. And he passed it along to Erykah Badu, and she became a fan. So, that kind of put us in me as a producer as well, in a different bracket as far as people knowing who we are.
Right.
And then we started to tour like the country out here in Germany and all these different places. So we were building a fan base, and not only were we building a fan base as a group, but as a producer, because I produced the music, I was building a fan base as a producer as well.
So you were traveling with Strange Fruit?
Yes.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That's so dope.
yeah.
So at this point, like, because not a lot of people know, but you're actually part of Erykah Badu's group called the Cannabinoids. Were you toying with that already at that point, or was that something?
No, that's something that came later. Like after we found out Erykah was a fan of the group, we were able to connect with her, and she hopped on one of our songs for the albums. Came out, we shot a video. It's called Get Live. It's on YouTube. So after that, we just had a really good relationship with Erykah. So I would always be talking to her. I was working with her on her New America Part 1 album, which we'll talk about later. So yeah, so that relationship came, and then as we continued to nourish that relationship, you know, her and her MD RC came with an idea like, yo, Erica, I want to start this band, but I want to keep it all electronic, just a band with producers and DJs. And that's how the Cannabinoids was found, just off of the idea that Erica had. But she wanted to use people that were kind of close and affiliated on the DJ and producer scene.
And all of y'all were from Dallas area?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. So you and I come from a similar affiliation through iStandard. Can you talk a little bit about like maybe attending conferences or being a part of showcases or beat battles that maybe help with some of that exposure?
Yeah, so that was the next phase of my getting exposure as a producer, and it's because once we created the group and we released a good 3 albums, people only associated me with the sound of the group.
Okay.
So I knew personally that I could provide so much more genre-wise and just sound-wise.
That's what your teacher prepared you for.
Yeah.
Right?
No, you're right, though.
Yeah.
So that was the reason for the showcases. I think my first showcase was the Red Bull Big Tune.
Bro, that is like one of the most revered beat battle showcases of all time. That's so dope.
Yep. So I did the Red Bull Big Tune, and I realized from doing those showcases how much that my music was touching people, because every time after I showcase, people, you know how showcases are. Everybody's coming up to you. You're able to exchange contact information and just building. So that was the first part of really building relationships. And from the Red Bull Big Tune, I think I did One Stop Shop, Shy Money's One Stop Shop. I did two back-to-back years. I got chose for the top 8 to compete. So I did those. And then that's how I met Jay Hatch, because he hosted the first One Stop Shop with Shy Money. And then I started doing their showcases as well. So within all those showcases, I was meeting, because the judges, they would have different label execs or A&Rs. So I was just constantly getting to these events to meet people, but not only meet people, but to showcase my music on a bigger platform, to where I know if 200 people is in this room, they're going to hear my music at some point in that night.
Wow, that's dope. So can you share with them, like, what did the One Stop Shop and like maybe even iStandard and Big Tune, what kind of people showed up to this thing? Like, I know you mentioned some A&Rs, but from what I've seen videos of, and I heard One Stop Shop was like crazy. One Stop Shop was
amazing, bro.
Like, so who are some of the people that were involved with stuff like that?
Yeah, so One Stop Shop, and it was my whole reason for trying to submit and enter and get into this thing. That was like one of my goals, because I knew that a lot of my people that influenced me was there, from DJ High Tech.
Oh wow.
Swiss Beats, Shy Money, of course. Who else? It was so many people. Just Blaze was there.
Wow.
And Pharrell came through one year, and it was just all these producers who I looked up to. So I was like, I have to get on this platform so they can be able to hear me.
So you knew ahead of time that
I knew
this
ahead
is
of
the kind
time
of
who was
people
going
that
to be. Yeah.
And so what did you do? Just did like research and?
Yeah. So I researched it when when it was presented. He had who the judges were, and he kind of throughout the process of it, he kind of released more information of, okay, these judges have been added. And when I looked at the lineup, I'm like, this is everybody the reason why I do music.
Wow.
Had
you actually sold like a beat by this time to any artists?
Yeah, so around this time I was doing my thing independently from the group. People were hitting me up, and I was working with a lot of independent artists at this time. So, and I was selling beats for $200 to $500 beats, $200 to $500 a beat.
Right.
But I think around that time, around 2008 or so, that's when I left my job as well. So, it was enough to still make sure I'm contributing to my responsibilities. Of course. But back to that. Yeah, I knew that I had to get into this competition so that I can be able to present my music on a wide scale from a lot of my influencers.
Man, Did you feel like that worked for you?
Absolutely.
Okay, so before we go any further,
Okay.
at this time you have already quit your job.
Yes.
Is that right?
Uh-huh.
Talk to me a little bit about that, because I've always found this part of your story extremely fascinating, because I was a product of somebody just kind of quitting my job, and when I did it, I wasn't very prepared.
Yeah.
Right. I don't really know if you were, but I would love for you to share that with us and let us know, like, what was that process like, the transition? How did family handle that? And like, you know, what are some of the things that you experienced and went through during that time?
Okay. So yeah, around 2008, like I said, I had put my group albums out, and like I said, I was doing fairly well on the independent side, selling beats, like I say, $200 to $500 a beat, and you know, just doing anything. I was mixing a couple people's projects to earn money, but 2008 came around, and I came to a realization that in order for me to really move to the next level in my career, that I'm gonna have to let my corporate job go and go 100% into this. The only thing, or the only setback was, or the only hurdle was, I was married and I had 2 young boys.
How young?
And I guess at the time they were 7, 8. I guess, yeah, about 7, or maybe even younger, maybe like 5, 6. Yeah, so I had 2 young boys, and I knew that my 40K income at this job, 35, 40K income at this job was needed, because we were still struggling and while I was working there.
Yeah.
You know, so I had this idea of having this talk with my wife to see what she thought, of course, because I can't just quit.
Of course.
So I had this conversation with my wife, and she actually, what I was thinking she was going to say is be like, no, you can't do it. We stress for bills. But when I had the conversation with him, she actually said that I feel that you should be doing music full time as well. So that right there was a huge battery in my back and a push. It's like, oh, not only do I believe in myself, but also my partner and my wife believes that this is my vision and my dream as well. So that helped a lot. But it wasn't me just coming off my job. It was like, okay, we know that you want to come off your job. The next year, let's prepare for you to do that.
Oh, wow.
So what we did was we focused on paying bills off. So we paid a few bills off. We saved some money. And then also we really dumbed down our lifestyle a lot. We cut our cable off. We love to watch TV, but we was like, hey, we can't do the cable because that's money that we need to save. So we cut our cable off.
And no Netflix at this time, right?
No Netflix at this time. So yeah, we cut our cable off. We did things like where she would go to the grocery store and buy a bunch of ground meat. And for you that don't know, that ground meat you can stretch. You can hamburger helper, you can hamburgers, you can do all these spaghetti. So we cut that back. We wasn't going out on the weekends like we were. We would do things with our boys that didn't cost anything, take them to the park. You know, just things that didn't cost any money. So we scaled back a lot so we could be able to save and pay bills off. And then after that year, we got to the point to where I was able to put my 2 weeks in.
Yeah, wow. So during this process, did you ever feel like all those things that y'all were doing may have maybe put a strain on your relationship? Or did you feel like we have a common goal and we're really believing that goal and we're going to work towards that goal?
Yeah, we definitely had a common goal, and you're reminded of that during the tough times.
Yeah.
Because it's easy it's easy to say it when things are okay, but when things get really rough, like, how many of the parties are gonna stick with it and be like, either forget this or no, this is what we knew this was coming. We knew that this is part of the process.
Right.
And you know, it was a blessing that my wife through the rough times was still in it, was like, no, we just gonna push through, you know. And a lot of things that she shared later is that something she wasn't even telling me about that we were going through, or she was just fixing it on her own.
Wow.
You know, behind the scenes, just so I could be able to focus on what I needed to focus on.
And that's important. I hear a lot of people talk about partners and relationships when you're trying to pursue something like this, because the long haul in this is crazy. Like some things go a lot longer than we anticipate, right? And sometimes the line of work that we're in, it's just very demanding time-wise, and you know, you can't do all the extra stuff that you would normally do, I guess, in a normal relationship. That's crazy, man. Like talk to us a little bit about that, like having that ideal partner and having somebody that really backs you up. Like, what does that really do for you?
It's everything, because I think at that point, you're not just focusing on yourself. And I think when you remove that selfishness of focusing on yourself, then things just open up. It's like at that point, and even now, of course, I wasn't my main responsibility. It's like I have not only me, but it's 3 others that I'm responsible for. So your actions change and your decision making change and your grind changes, because it's like, okay, now I have to make this work. You know, at one point when I had the job, you have that. I had that a little bit of security to where I can kind of halfway go on production. But at that point, when you remove that from the equation, it's like, okay, now I have to have this work, because there's me suffering is them suffering as well. Of course. Yeah.
Wow. So wife's on board. Yep. Y'all are pursuing the dream, making the sacrifices, doing the beat battles. Are you still part of Strange Fruit Project at this time, or?
Yeah, well, we don't really do anything right now, but we're still that's like my best friends.
Yeah. So as far as doing, like, did you do other things, like go to conferences or anything like that, or was it just
mainly? It was conferences as well. You know, anything that would put me in an environment that I needed to be in, where I could meet people that was doing the same thing I was doing, or meet people that could possibly get me to the next level. I was trying to be there.
Perfect. That's, I totally feel that.
Because that the relationship and the networking aspect of is everything.
Yeah. So during this time, when did you meet Illmind?
I met Illmind back in 2002.
Oh, wow. That long ago.
Long, yeah.
So I thought it was around the 2008 time, but it's way before that.
So it's like right after I created my group. He heard it online as well. And he heard some beats. We were in like these forums. We would be on OK Player and Underground Hip Hop and other forums. So we just kind of developed a relationship at that moment. And yeah, we was just working always just. And at that time, you know, sending beats back and forth on internet was very rare. So we would mail each other beat CDs.
What?
And we would mail each other stems. That's how we used to.
Really?
That's how we used to.
So you put all the stems on CDs.
CDs and.
Wow, that is throwback, man.
Yep.
That is crazy.
Yeah. So that's how we started working together, and then over time, he became like part of our crew. He was managed by the same people I was managed with, and yeah, we just developed a family. We created an album together called Order One Mind, which we released back in 2005, I think.
Oh, wow.
On BBE. And that was another thing, because BBE was releasing like the Jazzy Jeff, Dilla, you know, and that was always a dream. So to be able to release a collaborative album together on that label was another milestone for us as well. We
won't get too much into it, but I think it's just crazy how the both of you are doing so well right now. And how long ago y'all met. Yeah. Like, I don't even know if half of the stuff y'all have done was actually on your radar, you know, at that time.
Yeah.
I was talking to the guys earlier about networking and how important it is, and how instead of always networking up, to network across. And that's like the perfect example of doing that, man. So another person that comes to mind during this is Rhymefest. I don't really know when you met him, but he seems to be a very intricate part of your career through some of the stories you've told. And even now, I noticed that y'all seem to be really good friends. Can you talk to us a little bit about Rhymefest?
Yeah, I met Rhymefest back in, I want to say 2009. I was introduced to Rhymefest by, y'all heard of Fonte? Y'all heard of the group Lil Brother? So I was working with Lil Brother. And Fonte called me one day, and he basically said, he was like, "Yo, S, he was like, Rhymefest just called me, and he needs somebody to remix his song because the producer's not letting him use the beat. And I wanted to refer you because I know you can kill it. So I was like, cool, man, have him send me the acapella and I'll do something to it. So he sent me the acapella. I did something to it, and Rhymefest loved it. He called me and he was like, yo, send me some more beats. I'm at the end of my album. I need some more beats to finish my album up. So I sent him some beats, and then he called me one day, and the conversation was like, I want to use for the beats that you sent, but I'm at the end of my budget on the album. I can only pay you for 2. So that was the situation. I want to use 4, but I can only pay you for 2. I wasn't tripping, so I was like, just pay me for the 2 beats and I'll give you the other 2 beats. He was like, cool. So he used those beats, created songs for him. His album comes out, and then maybe a month later, he calls me and he's whispering on the phone, and he's like, yo, S, I'm in the studio with Kanye. Send me some beats over if you can, and I'll try to play them if I get the opportunity. Cool, sent him some beats. Didn't hear anything for like 2 weeks. So at that point, I'm already thinking, okay, either 2 things. Either Kanye didn't like what I sent, or he didn't get the opportunity to play them for Kanye. But a few days later, I get the text from Rhymefest, and the text says, Kanye is loving your stuff. He says he's about to change your life. So that's the text I got from Rhymefest at that moment.
And so how long had you known Rhymefest at this point?
Not for a couple months.
That's it?
Yeah, just from working on this.
Wow.
Which is very interesting too, because that's when I get into like the little small details of how God works things out, because like anybody could have did this. Like he was working with so many other producers, and it's like, why picking me out of the bunch? Later down the line, after the power situation and everything, he told me, he was like, no producer has ever looked out for him. So he felt like since I blessed him, he needed to bless me It's crazy. That's crazy because, a lot of times, especially when you're on in the up and coming part of your career, you can't really afford to do that very often. And even when you do it, you're like, man, am I doing this for the right person and the right reasons? And and it's also a struggle for you and or for any of us that are in that position. So the fact that he was able to say, you looked out for me, I'm going to look out for you. Because a lot of people don't do that.
That's true. That's very true.
Not do that.
Tone was just telling me yesterday, he goes, man, I wish there was more people like you and S in the industry. And because I think we have principle, right? There's certain ways that we were brought up and our parents raised us. And before we even get into the Kanye, like, I would love for you to, if you don't mind, sharing a little bit about that type of upbringing. You come from a Christian background, and I think one of the main things I really love about you is that you're not afraid to or shy to declare like who you are and what you stand for. How did that affect your process like during this time?
I think that's really my foundation, and how I was brought up has a lot to do with my whole career, because it taught me how to focus on the right things and not get caught up in the things that really don't matter. I'm very thankful when I think about just how my parents raised me and how they raised me and my sister, because that it goes a long way, just following and abiding by those principles that I learned, growing up.
Man, okay, so Rhymefest is in the studio. Calls you. What is that? What was your first emotion? Like,
it was crazy.
Like, did you believe? Because I don't know if I would have believed somebody if they told me that at first.
I was super excited, but then because prior to that I had went through so much, almost getting to your moment, but not reaching it, or having the rug pulled out from under you. Because
you had worked with Little Brother, right?
I worked with Little Brother,
and they were kind of like starting to pop around around there.
They were popping around that, starting to pop around that time too. But prior to that, it was situations like with the Erykah Badu making her album. It was three main projects that kind of was like, this was supposed to be my moment. what I thought was supposed to be my moment. It was Erykah Badu.
I like that. Hold that note because I want to talk about that. But go ahead.
Erykah Badu, Chameleonaire, and Music Soul Child. So it was these projects that I already had songs done with them. Even with the Erykah Badu, I had already signed the paperwork. What label is she on?
I have no idea.
Universal Motown.
Okay.
Universal Motown. They flew into town, met me in the studio. We did the paperwork. So at that point, I'm like, yo, this is guaranteed. This is happening. This is coming out.
Exciting.
I got a song on Erykah Badu's album. But 2 weeks prior to the album come out, she hit me and was like, I'm sorry, S, we had to pull the song from the album.
The frustration.
Very heartbreaking.
Yeah, I bet.
It was very heartbreaking. So when the Kanye situation came up, I was excited, but at the same time, I didn't want to get too excited, not knowing the details of everything.
Yeah, and that's a very common story too. A lot of producers that are coming up, they all have those almost moments, right? And you look at those and you're like, yes, this is me. I got this, and I can only imagine the disappointment one feels, but it does train you to be hopeful, but not put all your eggs in that basket when those opportunities come, right?
That's so true.
Man, I feel your pain, bro.
Yeah,
like,
man. But I it's like you said, I don't take those moments away because really, and I tell everybody this, my failures were such a requirement for me getting to my wins, because during those failures, yes, I'll be disappointed or discouraged for a short moment,
right? But
after there, my drive increases. I learn so much more, and it's almost like I'm trying to prove. I'm gonna do anything to prove people wrong,
right?
You know, so it was always those moments where I had those low moments, but it gave me a fire that I needed to climb to the next levels to get me to where I needed to be.
And I like what you said, your I thought were my moments.
Yeah.
Because as we're transitioning here, your moment was yet to come.
Yes.
Right? So talk to us. I know you talked a little bit about it, but refresh us again about the story of you meeting Kanye and that whole experience.
Yeah, so like I say, after I got the text from Rhyme Fest, Kanye's loving your stuff. He says he's about to change your life. 2 days later, my wife and I were eating at Red Lobster, had ordered our food, and I get an alert to my phone. It's an email alert, and it's from Don C, who was managing Kanye at the time. And the email was like, get to the airport as soon as you can. Your flight leaves to Hawaii in a few hours. So me and my wife left Red Lobster. We didn't even get our food.
Yeah, man.
We rushed home. I'm putting my clothes, getting packed up or whatever. And she takes me to the airport. Hawaii is a 6-hour flight. And that whole flight, I'm sitting there on the flight. And I remember just thinking like, yo, what is going on? Because at that point, things felt like they were happening so fast. Like I'm on a flight going to Hawaii to work with Kanye.
From
just
one
like
minute
that, from 1 minute to the next, And a couple of days ago, this wasn't even a thought. This was like, okay, I need to finish this beat tape so I can send it so I can try to get some money. But now I'm on this flight going to work with Kanye. So it was very, it was a weird moment being on that flight. I got to Hawaii. They had a driver pick me up, and driver had my name on it, S1, and it was just crazy, man.
Did it feel real at this moment? At
this moment, it still feels weird. So the sign says S1. The driver, I get in the car, and the first thing he says is, "Mr. West wants you to go take your stuff to the hotel and come straight to the studio." And I'm like, man, this is crazy. Just hearing that Mr. West wants you to,
I think Mr. West.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So that's the first thing you think about.
So were you like scrambling to get beats together, or did you have stuff?
I was just still wondering what was going on. I was pretty calm, but
yeah,
I was wondering what was going on. So I go to the hotel, drop off my stuff, freshen up a little bit, get back in the car. He takes me to the studio, and the studio is amazing. It's like on the water, palm trees, It was amazing. Go inside the studio, and then the receptionist told me that Kanye is waiting on me in the hallway, second door on the left. And I don't know if I was walking slow or not, but walking down that hallway seemed like
Forever.
So I walked down the hallway, and as soon as I open the door for the studio, it's Kanye and Ron Fest in the studio. And they're just kind of, and Ron Fest is like, yo, you made it. And he introduced me to Kanye. You know, we say what's up, and Kanye's like, yo, these beats you just sent is making me want to rap again. He was like, man, I love the energy of these beats. He was like, I'm in the space where I want to just rap. He was like, I already recorded to one of them. Let me play it for you, and you tell me what you think. So he plays the Power joint, and the whole time he's playing it, my mind is like, I can't believe Kanye is rapping over my beat. That's just, I don't even remember seeing or hearing anything. I'm just like, yo, I'm actually in the room with Kanye and he's rapping over my beat.
Yeah.
Because I was a big, he was a big, when College Dropout came out and Late Registration, which is my favorite Kanye album, once those came out, he was just like this person that kind of sat above everybody.
Yeah.
So for me to be in that moment, in that room with him, listening to my beat that he's rapping over, it was mind blown at that moment. So he's playing Power, and it was a completely different version, different verses. I was telling somebody yesterday, the chorus was even different. He had chopped all these Marvel quotes from Marvel cartoons up. Mm-hmm. So it was like power. He had chopped. Wow. He had took different vocal chops from Marvel cartoons and chopped it and made a chorus out of it. So that was the first chorus of Power, which eventually evolved into what it is now. But he played the song, and after that, he was like, yo, I'm working on this album, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. I would love for you to stay out here in Hawaii and help me with the album. So I wound up staying out there, which was supposed to be a week. It wound up being 2 weeks that I stayed out there.
So you go from Red Lobster to being 2 weeks in Hawaii.
Yes.
With Kanye West.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So I know whenever I have really successful trips and I feel like I've made some good headway and I come back home, I feel like, why am I home?
Yeah.
It feels like,
like
really dull, and I feel like there's things happening without.
It's like back to reality.
Exactly.
Back to the real world.
How was that for you?
It was okay. It was good in a sense because I knew once I got back home and I'd already exchanged contact information with Kanye and email number. So I knew at that point I was like, nothing else matters at this moment.
Right.
So anything I had working on, it was like nothing else moments. This is the focus. So that was my goal at that point. Is like, okay, I'm gonna send him a batch every few days. So that's what I did. I sent him a batch. He'd be like, yo, hold these two. Then I sent him another batch. Yo, hold this one for me. Send him another batch. And on the third batch, over about 2 week point, he was like, yo, hold these 3 for me. But he was like, you might as well come back out to Hawaii so I can track all these. So a few more days later, I went back to Hawaii and tracked all the beats for him. And that's when I found out that Power was his first single, because he was working on it and they was doing little tweaks. And that was the moment that it hit me. I'm like, oh snap, I got Kanye's first single.
Yeah, because it's Kanye. You know what I mean?
That's when it hit me, like, oh. And everybody around there was like, yo, your life is about to change. Do you even really know what this is?
And did you feel that, or did you feel like I'm just still trying to work and make it happen?
I felt it, but it's still that seed of not knowing.
From previous.
Yeah,
right?
from previous things and then current things too, because there were certain situations of like, so the sample clearance thing, the song released before they cleared the samples. So,
which that doesn't happen often.
It doesn't happen very often, especially now. So the song leaked before the samples were cleared. So the samples were trying to take 100% of the song, or they wasn't going to clear.
Wow.
So it was a process of, oh man, I hope that they clear this sample, because if he can't use this song, then that just forfeits everything.
Oh, yeah. You start thinking like, here we go
you start
again.
thinking like this, yeah. Like, okay, this is gonna be one of those.
Yeah.
Could have been the best moments of your life that never happened.
Right.
You know, so it was little things like that, and then just trying to work out the details of the agreement with Kanye, with our attorneys, trying to get things right. And then at this moment, Kanye is really wanting to sign me to his Very Good Beats production team.
Okay.
So you got that agreement. Then you have all these different publishing companies that's like, yo, we want to fly you out here. So it was just it was so much at that time to where it was a lot of anxiety and just a lot of uncertainty.
And did it come from knowing like, this is that moment, I got to make the right choices?
Exactly. That's pretty much where it came from. And this was another situation to where Rhymefest really blessed me and my wife, because my attorney to this day is the attorney that he introduced me to around that time while anything was popping off. He's like, yo, you got to meet Matt Middleton. You know, he was my attorney. He brokered all my deals, and you got to meet him, because now at this point, like, things are on another level. You have to have this in place. So, you know, me and my wife, we talked on the phone with Matt, and then we was able to meet him when we went out to New York, and we liked him. And it was a really good decision, because at that point he was there to be like, okay, this is not good. You should consider this. We should try to get this change right here, because this should look like this. Mm-hmm. You know, so with that, it started to calm my anxiety and my fear of that world. Wow.
So did you end up signing to Kanye?
Yes, I signed non-exclusively to Kanye, and I was over there for like 2.5 years, 3 years.
Yeah, wow.
Very Good Beats. And at that point, I was always with them. You know, London, Australia to work on the Watch the Throne, Hawaii. Was Hawaii like 6 times working on the My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy album, and New York we was working on Seal's album, which he was supposed to which he was executive producing, that never came out. So I was just always around.
So, you know, all of us have really only seen Kanye's interaction in the studio via YouTube. Mm-hmm. Can you give us a little bit of insight of like how he was during this process, during this time, his workflow and stuff like that?
Man, he's one of the most amazing individuals to work with. Going back to that flight, heading to Hawaii, that was one of my questions. Like, okay, how is he gonna be to work with? Because you just never know. Yeah. You know, is he gonna be a butthole? Is he gonna be cool? Is he? You know, but from that moment, it was just super amazing. He's super passionate. He's very energetic in the studio. He never sleeps. And that was the thing. That was the hard thing for me, trying to keep up, because first of all, the time change was affecting me, but he literally never sleeps. He was at the studio all the time. And I tell people that, so the first week I was staying in a hotel. When he wanted me to stay the next week, for the next week, he had me just staying at his Hawaii crib. So after the studio, about 4 a.m, the driver would take me back to his crib. He'd give me the key, I go in. And that was another moment, like opening the door and standing in the entrance and like, yo, I'm actually in Kanye's house. Yeah. So I would sleep, wake up to like 2 chefs making me breakfast every morning. And they would make me breakfast, and then I go on the back patio, eat my breakfast, and Kanye still hadn't made it there from the studio yet. Wow. He comes in while I'm eating breakfast, takes a shower, comes out back, and people that's in Hawaii, they'll start coming to the house, and we sit out back and have different conversations about things. And then we shower up, go to the YMCA to get conditioning, play basketball, go back to the hotel, and then for a couple hours, and then go to the studio. So that was the routine. Structure. It was very structured. Every day was that. And I
want you to continue, but I'll stop you for a second, because that's pretty interesting, considering on the come up, we are like no structure, it seems like, right? And we expect to be at a very high, successful at a very high level, not really understanding that that's a necessity.
That's a necessity.
Being able to be structured and have a routine.
Absolutely.
So that way you can get things accomplished. And I think that's really a testament to how he's been able to move forward, right? But continue.
Yeah, no, so yeah, that was the routine every day, and he would just never get sleep. And I was trying to figure that out. How he was able to do that, but yeah, it was just one of those things. And like you say, it was confirmation that routine and that focus, being away from distractions. That's why he went to Hawaii, and just having that routine of just, okay, this is the focus every day, conditioning, and then just being in the studio all day to focus on, this product.
Right.
And that really opened up my eyes.
Were you not that disciplined at this point?
I was disciplined, but not that disciplined. It was like extreme, very extreme.
When you got back, did you feel like I got to step my game up?
Yeah, I really did.
Yeah.
And that's what it was for. That's what being around that was for. Is like, I have to take this more serious, and I have to be more focused on just this, because in that process of doing that, you're actually elevating, you're getting better because you're doing it more all the time, and you don't have to think. It's just, everything is second nature. Creatively, even with your decision making and things of that sort, it just makes it makes you more efficient.
Yeah. Wow. I bet that was an experience.
It was, man. It was.
But just when you think you've hit the pinnacle of an experience, you get flown out to Australia. Is that right?
London was first, Bath, London.
And is this where you met Jay-Z and Beyonce?
Yeah, this is where I met Jay-Z and Beyonce. Like I said, at that point, I was signed to Kanye, so it was always just random emails from him, like, "Yo, S, we're going to Australia tonight. Can you fly out?"
Like it's just.
So every time he would do that, I would take 2 or 3 days because I have to make sure everything is straight, and then I'll fly out. But so the first trip was Bath, London. It was Peter Gabriel's studio. I think it's called Real World. You familiar? Real World Studios. Yeah, so that was the first. That was the first start, or the first session of the Watch Your Throne album. Going to the Peter Gabriel studio.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, and Jay-Z's there at this point?
Jay-Z's there at that moment, and that was another moment of like, wow, this is actually Jay-Z.
Yeah.
And because Jay-Z was there, Beyonce was there with him. So I'm meeting both of them at the same time.
That's crazy. So at this point, did Jay-Z already have the record for Watch the Throne, or was that something created there on the spot?
No records were done when we started the session. It was a matter of, okay, let's go to Bath, London. And Jay didn't get there till another day. So while we were there, it was me, Kanye, Mike Dean. I think Ryan Leslie had got there, so he was there. Then Noah, the engineer. No ID came a couple days later. So that first day, it was like, okay, this is the plan. We're gonna create and pull out beats, go through your beat catalog, so we can have a collage of beats for when Jay gets here. We can just play him stuff and then see what we both gravitate towards.
Was there any direction at this point as far as like what they wanted to do?
There was no direction at this point. Yeah. So yeah, that's what we did. We created some stuff and pulled out some beats. So when Jay got there the next day, and we hung out and had conversations, really dope conversations. And then we got to the point to where it's like, yo, everybody was set up. It was me. No ID had a station. Me, Ryan Leslie, Mike Dean, of course. And they would just look up. We were literally all in the same room. The console is right there, and their 2 mics is right here. And then we're on a platform that's kind of sitting up, but our stations is right here. And they just look up and be like, yo, what y'all got?
Okay. So at this point, bro, like, this is your first time meeting Jay-Z, right?
First time meeting Jay.
What do you play, bro? Like,
it was the most nerve-wracking thing ever.
I can imagine. Like, I wouldn't know what.
It was the most nerve-wracking thing ever, man. Because that's where confidence comes in.
Of course.
But it takes time to build that being around legends like that sometimes. But yeah, it goes back to not knowing what people want.
Right.
Something we may love, other people may not love,
Exactly.
and vice versa. Something we may think is trash, they may like, oh, this is everything. This is amazing. You know, so it's the fact of not knowing what they're gonna like.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, we would just play beats, and you knew based on reaction, you knew if they were gonna jump on the beat or not.
Okay. And what was that like? Like, is it Kanye going crazy, running around the room?
It's blasting it and just head nodding. And then when you see Jay look up at you like this and he starts mumbling, that was like one of the, I still got that in my head when I first played the Murder to Excellence.
I own the Blackout. I mean the Black
Album.
Yeah. The DVD.
Oh, okay.
And so what you see in that, is that pretty much what he does?
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. That's dope.
He just literally just mumbling and looking around the room and walking around the room. 15 minutes later, he's like, "Let's go."
So what was the first song that they recorded to?
The first few songs were it was like 3 Ryan Leslie songs, because Ryan Leslie was just playing stuff and they were like, yo, hop on that. They started doing, but none of them made the album because the direction changed. Yeah.
Did it change?
What was that?
Did it change while y'all were there or as time went on?
It changed while we were there and while time went on. Yeah, because you know, if you're an artist or even producers, if you're working on an album or project, you know, when you first start and you're just trying to find it, you're trying to figure out what's the sound gonna be. So those first few days was just that, like just trying to figure out what, you know, Watch the Throne. What is this? What is that gonna look like? You know.
And so y'all did Watch the Throne get done there, or was it that happened over time as well?
No, that was a so the first week was just recording songs. I think we may have did probably 8 to 10 songs that week. Yeah, and it wasn't a full week. It was maybe like 4 or 5 days.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're working with Jay-Z and Kanye.
Yep.
And then the plot thickens. Right? Is this, I remember you told me a story one time of you being like in a mansion. Is this?
No, that was Australia.
And are we at Australia at this point?
Australia was probably a month after Bath.
Okay.
Same situation. Kanye get the email, yo, me and Jay flying out to Sydney. Come out with us. So a couple days later, I'm flying to Australia, and the way we ended up in a mansion is Kanye didn't like the studio that they had picked out, just vibe-wise reasons. So he was like, yo, let's rent a mansion out here, just set the studio up in there.
Yeah, let's just get a mansion.
But it's what they did. They rented this mansion. It was amazing. And it was 2.5 floors. So on the first floor in the living room, they built the studio, or they set the studio up for them. So it was pretty much the same setup. They had 2 mics facing each other, and the console would be right there. The second floor was production suite, so they rented all these different, like Moog and Juno and all that Prophet, and they put it on the second floor, and that was where me and Jeff Basker and Mike Dean would be up there a lot creating. Beyonce was there, and she was like, okay, everybody's working, I might as well be working on my album. So on the half floor, on the third, or I guess like you could say third level, there was a media room on the third level, and they set her, it was like a little media room, little small, probably about the size of this. And they just set her little setup in that room. And so she worked on her album on the third floor.
And I really enjoy this story because the way this whole thing unfolds right here is it's one of those things again, one of those moments again where you're like, how come this happens to me, right? Like, of all people, can you talk to us a little bit about your encounter with Beyonce while you're there?
So when I got to Australia, I had already made my mind up, because prior in London, I would talk to B every day, because, you know, they just so polite. Every day they would come in the studio, they'd go around, speak to everybody. So it's hey, and then we were eating dinner. We would have dinner every day, like if we had this table right here. So every day we would have dinner together, and just me being at this dinner table and having conversations with Kanye, J, and B, and we're all here, and it was amazing, man. Like, I'm actually at this table having conversations with these guys.
Yeah.
But going back to that, I didn't really get to like really build with B back then. It was just always just, hey, how you doing? Or, you know. So I had already made my mind up. If she's in Australia, I'm gonna try to build with her more.
Yeah.
You know, and that's exactly what I did. I was just waiting for the right situation to build. So we were still eating dinner every day or every evening together in the mansion. But so with Beyonce being on the 3rd floor, to get to the 1st floor, she would always have to come downstairs and then pass me to get to the 1st floor.
Okay.
So there was a specific moment to where she left her door open, cracked a little bit, so I could hear music coming from the room up there. So I was like, okay, as soon as she come down, I'm gonna make conversation about the songs that I'm hearing coming out, or the sounds that I'm hearing. So she came down, and I was able to turn around right when she came, and she looked at me and she said, hey, and I was like, yo, are there songs from your album that you're working on upstairs? And she was like, yeah, you can hear that. She was like, I'm sorry, it's too loud. If it's too loud, just let me know. And I turned down. I was like, no, it sounds great.
Yeah.
And then at that moment, she said, okay, well, when I come back up, why don't you come up and I can play some of the songs for you.
Of course.
And you can give me some feedback on them.
Of course.
Closed mouths don't get fed.
Of course, yes.
And that's kind of reminds me, Tone was just telling me that you was telling them how during your network, how not standing in the back of the room saying nothing, and it's kind of the same thing, you
definitely.
know. So yeah, she invited me up to the room. I went up there. I met her engineer, DJ Swivel, who I'm really great friends with now. We work on a bunch of stuff together. But I sat in the chair. She sat beside me, and Swivel's in the front playing some of her songs, and I'm listening. And after every song, she would tell me, like, what do you think of it? Like, how can I make it better or whatever? So, you know, I'd be like, most of the time, I was just like, man, this sounds amazing as
Of course.
is.
You're like,
Yeah, it's like,
I know me, I'd be like, yeah. I wouldn't want to like mess up the moment, right?
man. So it was one song to where I thought something could be better, but before the song went out, I'm like, okay, now should I actually tell her this, or should I just go along with? And I was like, I'm just gonna tell her just to see. So song went off. She asked me what I thought about it, and I was like, man, the song is amazing, but I think the drums could be a little better. And she was like, She was like, how about I give you the Pro Tools session and you go redo the drums for me? So Swivel gives me the Pro Tools session. I go down to my floor and I'm like, oh, and I'm sitting here thinking like, yo, this is the moment. This is make or break it, because either she's gonna like this and that could be potentially more work to work with her,
right,
or more opportunity to work with her, or if she don't like it, then she may just shy away. And I mean, so went down there, put my headphones on, and did it. And it's probably one of the I second guess myself a lot. Mm-hmm. Or not as much now, but back then I was second guessing myself a lot, and that probably was the time I second guessed myself like times 100.
Oh,
like,
wow.
Is this good enough? And while I was working on it, she happened to come downstairs and she was like, "You finished with it?" And I was almost like 90%, and I was like, "I'm almost finished." She was like, "Play it for me." So I played it, and she loved it. She loved it, man. And so a couple of days later, I'm sitting at the table. It's early, breakfast. We hadn't started working yet. And she walks in the kitchen and she sits down at the table with me. And then Tata comes and they sit and we're just talking. And she was like, so me and Tata was talking and we wanted to ask, we love the stuff that you've been doing around here, like on the Washington stuff, the songs. And we want to just ask you to be all right with coming out to New York at the top of the year to help me on my album. And I'm like, are you serious? You don't ask me that. You tell me. You tell me where I need to be.
Where I gotta be.
Yeah. So so they asked me that, and I was like, yeah, I would love to. I'd be honored to. And January the 2nd, I got the call.
You remember the date?
I remember the date. Yeah. She told me the top of the year, and it was at first it was one of those things where like, you know, again.
Yeah.
Like, is she really gonna call? Because industry people will tell you anything.
Oh,
and they never follow through with it. So it was one of those things. But January 2nd, I got the call that Beyonce wanted me out that week.
And you had a dope song on there. Did she release your song as the single?
Yes, I got her second single, and this is a God thing, because going into the Beyonce situation, I was so intimidated. And the reason why I say that is because, so when we first get to New York, my wife is with me. I bring one of my musician friends, Caleb Sean, who is an amazing musician. So he comes with me, and I'm already comfortable with B at this time. So, you know, I walk through the door. She's like, S1, you come through, or whatever. And they looking like, oh, this is crazy. Like, this actually, you know, so they tripping out. So, so I already have I have a folder of beats, because I'm thinking I'm going there to play her beats. And I play her some beats, and she's jamming out to them. And about the third or fourth beat, she stops and she was like, well, I've already got all the songs for my album. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm thinking, what am I here for then? If you already got. She said, I have 5 songs that I really love the songs, but I don't care too much for the production. So I want to give you the sessions for these 5 songs, and you go in the room next to me and just rework these songs. She says, I have 75 songs for my album right now. At that moment, I was like, I'm not gonna make this album. No, literally, that was my thought. After maybe 2 days, as we started working the songs, I'm like, I gotta make this album. I can't make this a come out here and just to say I worked with Beyonce.
Right.
You know, so we really start to dial into these songs. And it was stressful. It's probably like one of the most stressful weeks of working, because B is amazing. Like, her work ethic, plus of course just the person she is, but her work ethic is like no other. And that it makes sense where she is today, because her work ethic is crazy. Like, I've seen her go in the booth at noon and stay in the booth till midnight, just knocking vocals in. I'm not gonna, like, just determine, like, I have to finish these 6 songs, all vocals, all the way through, backgrounds, everything, you know. So after seeing that changed my whole perspective on, okay, she's where she is because of how she works. Yeah.
So when she said she had all the songs, did you know it was 70? She told you it was 75? Yeah, she told me
75. And they had a dry erase board with all 75 songs listed on it. And they had to narrow it down to 25 for a listening party that they were having the weekend. And then from that 25, they had to narrow it down to 14 for the album.
So did you know, like, you were making the cut as it was happening?
As it was happening. So they had the first listening session. They had 3 listening sessions. They had one listening session where she invited more family to come listen to the songs, and they had score sheets. You know, that you score the song. Should this be a single? Why should this be a single? Should this be on the album? So each song, it was 25 songs. And out of it, when they narrowed it from the 75 to the 25 songs, I had 2 out of the 5 that was in the 25. So I'm like, okay, that's cool.
You're like,
on the score sheet.
Okay.
Yeah, I got 2 songs out of 25 on the score sheet. So the listening sessions it was 2 listening sessions. One with family, and then more with just more like head of Louis Vuitton and all these all these entrepreneurs. Just like super guys that were in the room. And it was small, intimate setting in the studio, to where it was maybe 15, 12 to 15 people. But they all had score sheets. And so the first listening session they had, Best Thing I Never Had was number 2. And another song called Dreaming, I think.
Okay.
I think it was called Dreaming. That was like top 10 as well. So I was like, yes, that's a good sign. Like, so the next listening party that she had, Best Thing I Never Had was number 1, and Dreaming was maybe like 15 or whatever. So I'm like, yes, that's a good chance. I'm like, they're not gonna. I hope they don't bypass that, knowing what other people are thinking about the record.
Right.
So after that situation went down and I went back home, it was crickets with that situation. So it was like, not knowing, I would text Tata and he'd be like, man, we still hadn't decided. I'd be like, y'all know they got the final track listing yet? And he'd be like, nah, we hadn't decided it yet. So it was a lot of cricket. It was for a few months, and until I got the call from Tata that one day, and he was like, "Yo, like, you made the album," and I was like, "Oh, that's crazy! I made the." And then he was like, "Yeah, you got the." I was like, "Do you think it's gonna be one of the singles?" He's like, "Yeah, you got the second single."
Was Watch the Throne a single?
No,
okay.
Murder to Excellence. Yeah. It was not. No,
okay.
It was just on the album. Yeah.
But still one of the most popular songs that people love.
It was pretty. Yeah, I got a lot of stuff off of that.
Yeah. So you got a song on the radio everywhere, doing its thing. That's just amazing, man.
It's crazy, man.
What's the time frame happening here? Like from the time you meet Kanye to the time Best Thing I Never Had released. What is that time frame looking like?
That was 2010. It was like July 2010, July, August, meeting Kanye. Watch the Throne happened 2 to 4 months later. And then the Beyonce situation happened that January. So it's all within a year.
Wow, man.
Yeah.
That's amazing because it's like, I'd be just concentrated on the one. I was like, if I get this one, I'd be happy. But to have three of the most iconic hip hop and R&B artists of all time.
Yeah, and me and my wife used to speak this too, because we would walk the track, and this was prior to even the Kanye situation or anything like that. Or actually, when the Kanye situation happened, we would walk the track and be like, man, like I'm actually about to have Kanye single, and we was like, man, you know what's next, right? Jay-Z. And then, when we get Jay-Z, we're going to get Beyonce. And that's exactly what happened.
That y'all were already, wow.
And we was just saying that based off of them being close and knowing it's
if it's kind of like it's automatic.
But that's exactly what happened.
Man. So what was your wife's reaction during all this time?
She was super excited, man. And I was happy because, like, just reflecting back to the sacrifice we made when I came off my job, it was like, okay, it actually worked.
Yeah.
So just knowing that and seeing her be excited about it, it's like, man, I'm glad this happened, because now it makes her decision even more powerful.
Wow.
Like her, you know what I'm saying? Justified, like that she was right.
Yeah. Man.
Even beyond me just having that vision and knowing like she was right by also believing in the dream and seeing the vision as well.
I could hear this story a million times over. I probably heard it about 15, and I love it every time we talk. Moving on from that whole time, I noticed that you've worked on like 5 different songs with Eminem. Mm-hmm. That's another one, man. Another situation where it's just like, wow, like.
Yeah, that's another one, man. And just to think, like, prior to working with Eminem, I was kind of against the A&R meeting thing. I hate it even to this day. Going in and playing music for people that really don't know and letting them approve if it's good or not for a project, it just turns me off. But my first Eminem placement was through an A&R.
Okay.
And it was through Manny Smith at Universal. And it was just a random meeting. Like, my managers hit me up one day and was like, yo, can you go by, Manny wants you to come through, play some beats for him. And so I wound up just going to the Universal office and meeting Manny for the first time and playing him some beats. And I remember playing, I played about 5 beats and he was taking them for certain projects. And then when I played the Bad Guy record, or Bad Guy beat, he was like, yo, this would be great for Eminem. But you hear that so much.
Yeah.
In meetings or playing stuff for people, like, yo, I can hear this for Kanye, or I can hear this. So he said it, and he was like, yo, can you give me that? I'll email it to him right now. So he wound up emailing it to him, and my whole thought process was like, yeah, whatever. So it wasn't until like a couple of months later, he sent me a text, and he's like, yo, Eminem Marshall is filling the joint that we sent him. I'll keep you updated. So I was like, okay, that's cool. That's good to know that he at least sent it and he's feeling it. So maybe a few months later, he hits me and like, yo, Eminem wants to use this joint. He was like, I need the files over. And I was like, wow, just like that.
And when you sent it, there was already a hook on that record, right?
There was already a hook on it. Sarah Jaffe, who I have a group with called the Dividends, and I work a lot with Sarah. We were just working on, at that time when we first connected, we were just knocking out songs. So she would just write hooks, send them back, and I send her some more beats. She write them, send them back. So our first 3 songs that we did, one was the Eminem joint, one is a joint Snoop hopped on, which never released, and the other one was, who was it? Dang, it was an artist. I can't think of who it was.
I'm sure it was a big artist.
Yeah, it was, because it was like, this is something special that we got. We got to keep it going, So, but yeah, the Eminem record did have a chorus on it when he got the record, and he wound up keeping not only the hook. They was gonna get somebody to sing it, but he wound up keeping her on there too, her voice on there as well.
Man, and so at this point, you've got like million records sold under your belt. Right, with these albums and these songs, any Grammy noms or anything come during this time?
Yeah, the Kanye was the first Grammy nom and win.
Wow!
So that was the first one, and then after that, the Eminem was the second win.
The Marshall Mathers
LP 2. Yeah. Yep. So.
That must have been a crazy feeling.
It really was, man.
To win a Grammy.
Yeah.
And then a Grammy off your first really big placement.
Yep.
And then, of course, Marshall Mathers and Jay-Z, 2 of the most iconic rappers, always debatable of the 2 best of all time. And for you to have a Grammy with one of those guys.
It was a moment. It was a moment because it's always moments like that to where I reflect back to the grind, the 12, 13 years of grinding of me seeing those moments. So actually being in those moments, I always reflect back of the time it was grinding and sacrificing and the setbacks and the discouraging moments and all of that. And just pushing through those moments will eventually get you to that moment of achievement.
Yeah. That's dope, man. You have 2 other artists, and if you want, you can briefly just touch on that you work with that I think is amazing. They weren't necessarily in their prime at the time, but you worked with Madonna and Gladys Knight at 2 different projects, 2 different situations. Can you talk just a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the Madonna situation was, so I was signed to Roc Nation, I did a co-publishing deal with Roc Nation, and that came from my relationship with Jay-Z and Tata. So I did a deal with Roc Nation, co-publishing deal with Roc Nation. And it was a certain situation to where my rep there, Domo, hit me up and was like, yo, I sent some of your joints to Madonna. We chose a few producers who we felt like could fit what she's looking for, what she says she's looking for. And her team is really feeling your track. So I was like, oh, that's dope. So maybe a few months later, we're at the battle we did, South by Southwest.
Oh yeah. Wow, okay.
Texas versus Toronto.
Yeah.
So we're at that battle, and I get an email from Domo. Was like, hey, Madonna wants to fly you out.
Did you show me that?
Yeah, I think I did.
I do remember that.
I saw
Okay,
you showed you the email that night. Yeah, so I got the email that night that she had chose 12 people, producers and writers that she wanted to help with the project. So I was in that. So she was just Domo was just telling me that she wanted to fly me out to. I think we went to New York first for a week. So, and basically the way that situation was set up was she had chose 10 to 12 people, writers and producers, or writers to work on her album. And she had, for the week, she had 2 groups. So we would be in one room and another group would be in another room next to us. So she would come in every day and do 4 hours with us, and then she'd do 4 hours with the other group.
Yeah.
So that was every day. And we would just work on song ideas. So when she got there, she'd be like, okay, I like it. Let's finish it. So we finished writing it with her there. So we did that for a week. We did 6 songs that week with her. A few more weeks after that, Domo hits me. It's like, Madonna really likes your group. Can y'all do LA with her? So we wind up going to LA and doing another week with her, and did another 6 songs. So 12 songs. And I think she did maybe a total of maybe 50, 60 songs for that album per the 2 groups that she had. And I wind up having 8 songs on the Rebel Heart album. You know,
wow.
and what's crazy about that is I was there as a producer, but I didn't produce anything on the album.
So how did you make...
It was writer's credit.
Nice.
Because when I got there, they was like, okay, we're not focused on production. We're just focusing on writing songs the whole time. You know,
wow.
so we're just focusing on the song, not production. So I helped write the songs with the group, and I was blessed in that moment too, because the group that I was with, the songwriters were amazing. It was Toby Gadd, who's responsible for so many hits, you know, John Legend's All of Me and all these incredible songs. And then Mozella, who wrote, at that time it was out, she had like 3 songs on the radio at that time. One was Miley Cyrus' Wrecking Ball. You know, so I mean, I just got with the right group.
So how did you get in this situation again?
And they chose the groups. It wasn't just, you know, so I just happened to be in the right room.
Yeah.
You know, and I was able to contribute certain things, you know, but they were the main writers in the room. I just helped, you know, just throwing different things out at them, and, you know, however I could contribute, you know, because they were, you know, that was another intimidating situation too, because they both had 2 or 3 songs on the radio at that time that we were writing with Madonna.
Did you ever think that at any point you would work with Madonna?
Never.
Man, that's dope.
Ever.
That's dope. And then I think it's really unique because with Gladys Knight, you know, a lot of us have sampled Gladys Knight as producers, and we consider her, you know, like old school, something that is not, you know, that I wouldn't have ever thought she was going to come back and make another album and stuff like that. And how was that? How was, like, because I know she was at your house, right? She was actually...
She drove her tour bus from Nashville to my house and stayed for 2 days.
Just parked in the front?
And we recorded at my studio.
Wow. Man, that is so crazy, bro.
It's so crazy, man. She came down and we recorded 2 songs. So prior to her coming down, we had another session at my crib with her writer Avir, who sings backup with her, and then he's a outstanding writer. So him, and then he brought some of his writing friends, and then with me, I had like some of my producer friends with me. So we just had my house just on lockdown. My studio, I think my son's room upstairs, because he has his set up. That was a room. The media room was a room. So we was just cranking up, and we did 2 songs that Gladys really, really liked. So she was like, this one song, this is my song. I'm cutting this song. So she wound up driving the tour bus down to Texas and staying for 2 days, and we worked on the song.
That's dope, because I've seen her do interviews and stuff, and she shouts you out all the time. That's really, really dope.
It was amazing, because not only did I produce the song for her, but she also like gave me full control of everything, and that was a stressful time. I had to pray a lot. I had to pray a lot, because
she's a legend.
We would be in meetings, me, her husband, who's a manager, and then like Avir and maybe a couple more people for a team. And every time they would ask what she want, she would look at me and be like, what do you think? Or what do you think I should do? Or whatever.
Pressure.
A lot of pressure. So I had to kind of put myself in a position mentally to where I started to own that. Like, okay, this is what it is. If she's trusting in me, like, I have to present myself so she doesn't. Because if she sees that I'm uncertain, right, then she's gonna have second. Yep. You know, she's gonna second guess whether she's, you know. So I had to kind of change my whole mindset. But it was a great learning experience, because that's the way you have to be. You have to be confident in situations. Yeah. And, you know, I had to do my homework, and I had to study. And my whole thing was like, this could be very, very good, or this could be very, very bad.
Man, but that's dope that you were able to recognize it and own it. So, man, these are some amazing stories. I want to fast forward to today, man. Like this year, was it this year? You were on the Eminem, or was that last year? When did that last project drop?
Okay, yeah,
Eminem?
that was
last year.
Kamikaze?
Yeah, Kamikaze dropped last year, and you all had 2 songs on there. And there's something that keeps happening in the course of your career that I'm seeing, and the fact that you were able to like bring Caleb into a situation, and I know Malix was involved with one of these situations, and here we're in 2018, and you get another local producer to get a major placement on the Eminem project with you. And that is like a huge turning point for him.
Yeah.
Can you talk just a little bit about that? Because I like identifying the fact that you're still giving back. You know what I mean? And that brings us to even being in this room right now. So if you could just share a little bit about that.
Yeah. So yeah, I really pride myself on being in a position to be able to give back. One thing that Rhymefest told me back after the Kanye situation happened, he pulled me aside and he said, "Now that I bless you,
I feel you.
said it.
I know.
I said this wasn't gonna happen." No, he basically just said, "Now that I bless you, it's time for you to bless others." So I really took that to heart. Yeah. Yeah, let me have one more.
I think that's so dope because there was a time where you couldn't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I wanted to. But
Of course.
the timing. Yeah.
Of course. And we've talked a lot about reflecting on the moments that even though we're working, like we felt like God really put us in certain situations, right? And when you look back, you're like, wow, only God could have done something like that, right? And so now you're in this position and you get to do that, and you're taking these words and what happens?
Yeah. Yeah. Like I was saying, sorry about that, y'all. I just I get choked up every now and then. But yeah, I really pride myself on just helping others, and my whole purpose now and a few years back is just to inspire and encourage and be able to be a bridge on people that, I realize that everybody has dreams and visions. So if I'm in a position to be able to help someone get to that other side of the bridge, then I try to position myself to be able to do that. And that was one of the things with my producer, Lone Star. And Lone Star is just super good dude and been working hard, with his head down, and just to be able to put him in a certain situation like that's everything. And that's one of the main things why I do it, is to be able to do that.
And for you guys that are watching, it's just like, I think this goes back to what we were saying earlier about building relationships and networking, and understanding that you never know where things are going to come from.
Never.
Eminem's last project was the most streamed project of 2018. And it was also Lone Star's first plaque.
First plaque, yeah.
He got his first plaque. I had the privilege of witnessing you present him at your house with the plaque. And the moment was so emotional. Yeah. Because we all knew where Lone Star's come from and what he's been going through. And to see him reap the benefits of his hard work, even though it seemed like things were never going to work out at times, right? Is amazing, because Lone Star's not like a super big producer, right? It's just, but he happened to do what he was supposed to be doing at the right times, and was fortunate to meet somebody like you over time and build with you. And I think that's really, really unique. Is there anything you could talk to the producers about, moments in your life where you felt like maybe you made a bad decision, or maybe you felt like giving up, but you were able to work through that to help you to where you're at right now?
Yeah, I mean, per my story, I mean, you can see that there were definitely many of those moments, and prior to the big records I was mentioning earlier on the Erykah Badu and the Music Soul Child and Chameleonaire, those were definitely 3 moments to where it was like is this, you start to question if you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And those were definitely moments where I questioned, was this for me? But I've always been the type of person to where, okay, I may be discouraged for this short moment, but I use that as fuel to get back on my feet and let's go even harder than I was before. So I always use those moments to just really just to as fuel to push through. And when those good moments happen, you realize that those disappointments are just part of the process to get. You have to go through those moments to get to the success moment.
Yeah.
And there's no success without those trying times or those times that you want to quit. Even now I have moments to where I don't say I want to quit, but I have discouraging moments. Things may not work out. I have plans and I have goals and I have certain visions for certain things, and they may not go according to plan, but that's just part of the process.
Right.
So I always have to reflect back to earlier situations to where it was the same thing. It's nothing different. And I think on every level that you get to, you're going to have that. Like it may get easier at points, but you're still going to have the equation of having things not go your way.
Yeah. So you have a lot of aspiring producers in here. Yeah. Is there anything that you could tell me, like how important are relationships? I mean, obviously we've heard, just identifying through the story that there's relationship building, but in your own words, like what is the importance of relationships, building with people, stuff like that?
My career was built off of relationships, directly and indirectly. Mm-hmm. Directly because just being able to meet certain people, and if you deliver a good product, number 1, and 2, just be easy to work with and not a butthole. Yeah. People will want to work with you again. Yeah. And also, in addition to that, people will want to tell other people about working with you. In my case, that's what a lot of it is. Like, people just like, yo, what's some name told me I need to work with you. Like, oh, I love your production. Oh, you used to work with this guy? Or, it was just always connecting, dots being connected at some point. Yeah. And that was just all based on me not only building relationships with people, but nourishing those relationships well and making sure that I'm not overextending the relationship.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. This has just been amazing, bro. Before we close out, can you talk to us a little bit about your PFPE brand and how that is, like what that does for you and like why you even preach that or put it out there like that?
Yeah, so my Pray Focus Plan, I'm actually wearing like this right here. I had the shirt on yesterday, PFP, Pray Focus Plan Execute. That's basically my brand that I started a couple years ago. And my upcoming book, my memoir,
which I was about to ask,
is called Pray Focus Plan Execute too. And so this is basically just me looking back at my whole career and how everything was laid out, and I realized that those were the 4 things that were present in any situation. Is just praying, just acknowledging, that it's bigger than me. God is nobody but God. Just putting the pieces together, and what's for me is for me, and that's just clarification in any situation where I ended up in a room that it's like, okay, I didn't place myself in this room. It was God that put me here. Yeah. So just acknowledging that and having gratitude. Focus is just having a dream or having a vision and not being distracted by anything. Like once you have a vision, once you have a dream, like don't let anything on the outside distract you from that. Like just staying straight focused on that dream. Mm-hmm. Planning is crucial. Like I'm a extreme planner. I plan everything. Planning is basically just writing out your goals, writing out your tasks, your plans, anything. Write it down to make it real. Yeah. And then executing is just executing the plan. Like, you can have a plan, we can have ideas in our head, but if we don't execute them, they'll just remain just the idea in your head.
Of course,
or just the dream in your head. So the execution is very important too, because you have to execute that. So that's pretty much my brand. And yeah, like he was saying, I have a book called, or a memoir called Pray, Focus, Plan, Execute. I'm dropping this fall, and it's really kind of similar to what we just did. Each is 21 chapters, and each chapter is highlighting a special moment in my career. You know, whether like my Beyonce chapter is called Bee Stings, and it's talking about in detail like everything that went on during that situation. And I have a chapter called Watching the Thrones, and that's talking about that situation. And at the end of each chapter, I have a reflective moment to where I really break down like how God connected the dots for me, and how you know, there were certain failures leading up to that success. It wasn't just going directly from A to Z. It was going through all the points and going back a couple times and then getting me to that point.
Yeah. Again, your story is amazing, man. And I like what you said about the what's for me is for me. I think that's important. You know, as up and coming producers, a lot of times we can get sidetracked about what this person is doing, or the success that they're getting, or
even more now in the Instagram.
It's crazy. And I think that's important, that if we can do that, hone that belief system in, like what's for me is for me, it'll help us to grow a lot quicker versus being sidetracked by other people's growth. You know what I mean? S1, I love you, bro.
Love you too, bro.
And it's been a joy and a pleasure. Y'all give it up for my man S1.